Hello everybody, welcome to another Q&A. I've been absolutely loving this close season, so thank you everybody for the questions. Just a great way of kind of interacting with subscribers and talking about what people really want to talk about. A couple of bits of housekeeping first. It is so hot, it's not funny. I'm in a garage office here, which is either boiling or freezing. So, I've not put the blinds up, so the light's not what it normally is. And I'm just going to try and get through without turning into a puddle of sweat. I have turned the fan off for you, so you don't hear the buzzing noise of a fan in the background. The other thing I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do these completely off the cuff. I've got the YouTube open on the monitor there and the post there. So normally I have these prepped and we have a little thing go up on screen or whatever. But I'm just going to try and hammer through today, get all of your questions answered, and I have not seen or read any of these. Let's start then. We're going to go fastest finger first. I'm doing them in the order they came in. Matthew, Ben, why is it so much easier for promoted League One teams to survive well in the Championship, while recently promoted Championship teams struggle more in the Premier League? It's just purely money, isn't it? If you do a simple little bit of maths and you look at the chasm between the Premier League and the Championship as opposed to the Championship and League One, you're talking a few million, 5 million quid to not to compete with the top teams, as in going from League One into the Championship and compete with the parachute teams, but you can compete with the middle order reasonably quickly. Whereas even if you are a parachute team, going up into the Premier League, you are still a relative pauper compared to anyone who's been there even a couple of years. So yeah, just different size chasms, frankly. SUFC, NFL, lots of initials for me to be. If you were picking the replacement manager at Sheffield United, who would you have gone for and why? I mean, straight away, assuming I would have sacked Chris Wilder. Anyway, I don't think I would have sacked Chris Wilder, but we've spoken about that a lot on the channel, and we'll see how that turns out. Probably Steve Cooper. I'm just a really, really big fan. I remember very fondly what he did at Nottingham Forest. I think he's very smart. All of his teams, Swansea and Forest in the Championship, have been super competitive, super well organised, and he's free and available. And I don't think you factor what happened at Leicester in as making him a bad manager all of a sudden. So probably Steve Cooper. Harrison, what do I think about 12:30 kickoffs? And he adds, I personally can't stand them. So it says Harrison PNEFC, so he's a Preston fan, which probably makes 12:30 kickoffs a bit worse because Preston, well look, I'm an Ipswich fan. There's always tons of travel to and from Ipswich, isn't there? But that kind of sums up my answer, because where I am in my life now, where I've traded being 3 games a week pretty much on average during the season for a 3-year-old daughter who will turn 4 in August. Where I am in my life right now, it works quite well for me because I'm trying to be at home while my daughter grows up as much as I possibly can be, as opposed to being off at games. So what we tend to do with the Saturday 12:30 kickoffs is my missus takes my daughter to a little dance thing on Saturday morning. I do the 12:30 kickoff, and then we can all hang out after then in the afternoon, you know, sort of 2:30, 3 times. So for me, it works really, really well. But I understand why for fans, you know, if you're traveling, it's a problem, isn't it? Because all of a sudden, I don't know, if you're doing a couple of hours journey, you're going to be leaving very, very early if you want to get parked and settle and go and get lunch before a 12:30 kickoff. I doubt you are. So I get why they're a bit of a pain. They work well for me, but if you're out on a limb and travelling particularly to away games, I can see they're a bit of an issue. Josh, as someone who must watch a lot of football and obviously talks about it all the time, do you not ever just get a bit bored, sick of it? I've had to take a bit of a break from football, and particularly fantasy football recently, because I was just so bored of it and all of the terrible copy and paste punditry. Not yourself, he adds there. Rightly so in the end. What a great question. And the answer is yes. It's not necessarily bored, but I do sometimes feel a bit oversaturated. Now, look, you're talking to me in the close season where, I'm almost ready now. If the football season was about to kick off, I'd be ready for it. But we've obviously got another entire month here, 20th of June today, and it'll be sort of the first weekend in August. But really, if you're doing YouTube, once you get into the final week of July, we start doing all the predictions videos, and everyone's got shirts out, and signings are ramping up, and all of that stuff. So there's almost more to talk about in that first couple of weeks. But in terms of the regular season, yeah, and I need to acknowledge how lucky I am to be able to walk to my garage and talk about football for part of my income, of course. So I don't want to sound churlish or what have you, but if you can imagine where we get a 3-game week in the Championship as well. So if, for example, I have a reasonably quiet Friday, but I'm going to do the watch-along game in the evening, I'm going to get up on Saturday, and there's probably shorts and whatnot to get up from the watch-along the previous night. I'm going to do the 12:15 kickoff. Then I'm prepping the hot takes on Saturday night. Probably get a takeaway with the missus or something. Prep the hot takes, chill, do some reading, and I'll film the hot takes ready for Sunday morning. Then we go into Sunday, and I'll host Blue Monday, which is obviously another channel separate to this. And say, for example, we're going into a 3-game week. I'll then be speaking with Sam and doing predictions on a Monday. There'll be a Championship check-in podcast as well. Then there'll be the Tuesday night games. I'll be doing something with Matt SB, presumably in terms of League One, and then reacting. And then Wednesday night, we get into Thursday, and you're getting ahead of Saturday. And then you do the whole weekend again exactly like that to roll round to the Monday. And yeah, by the end of it, honestly, you're a little bit like, man, if I see another guy kicking a sphere of air around a field into a rectangle, I'm going to bang my head against the wall or what have you. So I think the key I've found, and it's really, really difficult because what it does do is it stops you consuming other people's excellent content. But I do tend to kind of shut down a little bit, switch off, and then go, right, buzz, review the Championship, stop, forget about it. And it was tough last season as well, because I'd have to focus in on the Championship on Sunday, then I'd be talking about Ipswich. So then I'd have to look at the Premier League as well. So I think it's almost just having like a palate cleanser or what have you in between, and listening to different types of podcasts and different topics and things. I like Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson. I think that's a great podcast, and that's good because it's like hour and a half long sometimes, and you just move out from the football. Obviously, having a child allows you to move out from the football as well. But I suppose it's very much like in my life as a musician, when you go and play a gig and you arrive, you sound check, you get everything ready, you play all night, you unpack, you get into the car, the absolute last thing you want to do is listen to some music. I'm trying to think, it was Ed Sheeran I heard talking about it the other day. He was talking about playing stadiums, and he had a good analogy. He said that if you eat steak every single day, it doesn't matter how good the steak is, eventually you'll just want yourself a burger. So yes, who asked the question? Josh. I know exactly where you're coming from. Bored is probably the wrong word, but oversaturated a little bit. And I think the key is, if you're doing what I'm doing, to keep fresh. And it's very, very easy. In the morning, you're like, I don't know, you're doing chores or whatever, setting up for the day, sorting my daughter out, all of that. Because it'd be very easy to stick a football podcast in. But I think give yourself a break and then go in strong, focus, and then get out again, short little spurts of activity, or yes, your entire life will then be just football. And don't be wrong, I'm sure there's people who'll comment on this, will say, there's nothing wrong with that, Ben. My entire life is football. Anyway, but look, to each their own. I want to try and find some balance, because what I do know is I really, really love football and I love watching it and I love covering it. But I know what my personality's like. If I go in too strong, I will ruin it for myself and I will stop enjoying it. Hence the Ed Sheeran quote about steaks and burgers and all of that good stuff. Right, where are we going next? What's that say? T-Lightning or something like that. What was the most exciting game of the Championship last season? This may be biased, but Swansea 3, Leeds 4. The most exciting game of the Championship. God, I did loads of good watch-alongs as well. I think perhaps the back-to-back, when it looked like Leeds had won it, that was exciting, wasn't it? Where they won in the last minute twice, didn't they? Against Sunderland and against Sheffield United. I think as well in the Sheffield United game, I think both sides really, really went for it as well. I can tell you the most exciting round was round 46, and I had a ball doing the watch-along for round 46. That was complete carnage, and the Championship really, really treated us, and we were all making comparisons to the Championship and the Premier League. So, if I can switch the question a bit and say round 46. Liam, I'm seeing people talking about Brentford potentially getting relegated next season. Thoughts? If a promoted team does stay up, West Ham gets relegated, in my opinion. I get it. I was talking to Conor McGilligan on his channel the other day from his Leeds point of view, and he was looking at Brentford and saying, well, if you compound all of these things and everything goes wrong, there's going to be a new manager in. They've probably sold, or by the time we get to the start of the season, if Mbeumo's not there, I think this has been linked away. Obviously, Frank has been a talismanic manager there. And I don't know, sometimes it's like a balloon and it just gets pricked by a bad summer and fizzles out and a bad season incurs. The only thing I would say is, and we've been saying this all season about the Premier League, is how bad are you going to have to be if you're one of the 17 to actually get relegated? We're talking, I think, absolute disaster, really. 4 managers probably, or at least 3 managers during the season, 2 sackings probably required, an injury crisis, bad luck, VAR calls going against you, bad recruitment. All of those things probably would need to go wrong. But, I mean, if you had to pick a team, maybe it would be Brentford right now, but that's not to say they might still not be 10, 15 points clear come what may. He mentions West Ham as well. I don't know about West Ham. I just feel West Ham across the squad. I remember when Ipswich played them last year and you looked and there was Bowen, Paquetá, Kudus, Souček. I know he was going. There was like one other where you're like, oh my God. They got like some really, really class players. And, as long as they just have a few regular lads around those, they're probably going to beat the promoted team. So again, you would be looking for utter disaster. Basil, the cat. Like Luton, Ipswich got promoted from the Championship with a squad made up of players you wouldn't have on paper as high-end Championship talent. Yeah, agreed. Given Delap departure, they are largely left with the squad that massively overachieved in the Championship last time out. Why should we see them as favourites for promotion? Well, I think the reason why is the reason I'm going to say you're not entirely correct in saying that they're going to be left with the squad that went up, because they're not, because they signed a load of players who are going to be there in the Championship next season that weren't in the Championship last time. They've obviously got Palmer and Muric, the goalkeepers there. Ben Johnson is new. He could play right back. Dara O'Shea and Jacob Greaves weren't there. They could be the 2 centre-backs, although O'Shea may be sold in the summer. Leif Davis, that might need replacing if he leaves. They'll certainly need new midfield, put it that way. It's not going to be Morsi and Luongo. It definitely can't be Luongo because he has left. So again, he's not going to be there. And then when you look at the 3 behind the front, who would it have been in the Championship? Chaplin, Broadhead and Hutchinson. Well, Hutchinson will be there. 35 million quid release clause says he might not. But then Philogene has come. Clark has come. Smodix was the top scorer in the Championship last time. I'm sure I'm missing a few sort of big names out from those positions where Ipswich seem rather stacked. And yeah, Delap has gone, so they probably need a striker in there. So I would agree that Ipswich, like Luton, got promoted with players who, on paper, yeah, it was a great managerial performance, wasn't it? A bit different for Luton because obviously they went up in the playoffs and the kind of door opened, didn't it, in Luton's season where there was kind of an idea of failure with, I think it's like Norwich and Watford, might have been year one parachute teams, maybe year two, I can't remember at the time, but none of them managed to do it. Ipswich went up as well in a season where the parachute teams were very good, as in Leicester got 97 points, Leeds got 90 and Southampton got high 80. So there's a few differences. And the last one I would add, and we've spoken specifically about recruitment, I think the biggest signing Luton made was Taif Chong for like 5 million quid or something when they were in the Premier League. And Ipswich spent like over 100 million quid, didn't they? And Luton then didn't massively touch their parachute payments, whereas you'd expect Ipswich will be able to utilise them. Not that it's right, but it's what everybody does. They'll utilise them to sign new players. You're supposed to spend it on the contracts that came down with from the Premier League. So, whether that makes them favourites for promotion or not, I think the favourites tag is mainly due to the fact that Leicester will possibly, likely get a points deduction, which means although they'll be a favourite to be in the top 6, the top 4, the top 2, you tell me, maybe they can't be title favourites. And Southampton will still, who knows? You know, if he does well, they'll be right up there and they'll probably be over 80 points. Tends to be what happens to parachute teams. But could it not go well? And that's the deal at this point in June when we don't know, I suspect if Kieran McKenna goes to manage Brentford, Ipswich's odds may lengthen. But right now, you look at the parachute teams as favourites and probably Ipswich as the most stable. So perhaps I've answered the comparison to Luton, which, yeah, you can have some similarities, but I think there's way more differences than similarities. And I think they're probably, right now as I'm talking, the most stable of the 3 year one parachute teams. Right, where are we going next? Vinyl SX92. What was the first concert gig you ever went to? Now, the reason these have been good is I've been very authentic and I've been very honest. So I have to say the first gig I kind of went to with my mates, I think I went with Matthew Robertson, who's like a kids author now. Look him up, he's brilliant. And Matthew Curtis, who I think is like a model or something. So yeah, I failed out of those two. We went to see the Bootleg Beatles at the Ipswich Regent. So, I mean, not exactly AC/DC or, Enter Giant Band at Portman Road or at Wembley Stadium, but I bloody loved it. And Oasis were huge at the time, and I got my parents' Blue album and Red album out from the loft and played them on vinyl and recorded them on cassette and really learned music by listening to the Beatles. And then when the Bootleg Beatles, they're still going actually, the Bootleg Beatles. In fact, during COVID, the bass player, the Paul McCartney guy from the Bootleg Beatles, was brilliant. He'd do little bass lines and you have to name the Beatles song. So, yes, the Bootleg Beatles. Again, it may not be, as I say, insert stadium massive act, but I thoroughly enjoyed it at the age of whatever I was, 15 or something like that. Dave, with what's happening at Sheffield Wednesday, is it time for the EFL to potentially have powers to remove club chairmen if they endanger the existence of the club they own? Yes, it would be good if that could be done. Now, the solution that is often kind of suggested, Dave, is that we have some kind of payment in bond that would last, 3 months of running costs for a club or something like that. And maybe 6 months would be necessary, but it would almost feel good if we're talking about Mr. Chansiri, or Dave mentioned Steve Dale at Bury, if the EFL could give warning 1, warning 2, warning 3, and with all of those warnings, they say, if you do not do this, at the end of warning 3, we are hitting the button and you are out and we are taking your bond which you've paid to us, so the EFL would just keep that. I think escrow or whatever they call it in the United States, don't they? And then the club will be run by administrators, but with bond. They wouldn't then presumably have to sell all of the assets like that. And I suppose with transfer windows, it's a bit different now than when clubs went into... God, when Ipswich went into administration after ITV Digital, it's just disaster. And Matt Holland and Herman Haridason and Darren Ambrose and Darren Bent, all the good players just went for next to nothing. Most of them are at Charlton as well. But yeah, that's the suggestion that's normally kind of mooted. Now, I'm not an expert on this stuff. So if there's people who understand about law and about banking and all of that stuff, maybe they can say why that wouldn't be allowed. But I would love to see something like that. And even if it was a case of you're suspended for 6 months, well, we either find a new owner or you can bid to have the club back, but you need to present us a business plan that we can approve. They just need to take the power away from the likes of Mr. Chansiri, who's again, not doing the cleverest things in terms of Sheffield Wednesday or the Wednesday fans and non-payments and transfer embargoes and things like that. And I've mentioned Dai Young and Reading so many times when we've talked about the issues with Sheffield Wednesday that, yeah, the EFL were on a bit of a tightrope there, because on the one hand they had to push this guy who didn't seem to care, and and loads of people comment this, and I agree with them. They say, well, Ben, these people, they're diminishing their own asset. They're devaluing it, and they want to hold out and sell it whilst they're devaluing it. It's almost like, I don't know, you have a car that's a lovely asset and you're hitting it with a hammer, which means that anyone who buys it's just going to say, well, take off the value of the new door I'm going to have to buy because you've smacked it with a hammer 20 times or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea, Dave. And if there's a way of holding the money in abeyance for however many months, then that would be my layman's solution. James, take a swig. Who's your favourite footballer you've ever seen live? Now, favourite is not the same as best. So normally my answer is Marcus Stewart, who's my favourite player. But shall I try and name a player from a club that's not Ipswich, where you just watch them? I really like Pablo Hernandez when I watch Leeds a lot under Bielsa. And I hate to say this as an Ipswich fan, I used to love watching Emi Buendia for Norwich. So let me name one more. Jack Grealish. What a three off the front that would be. Grealish for Villa, Buendia for Norwich, and Hernandez for Leeds, where especially Buendia, when I'm supposed to be a rival fan, and you just couldn't help but go, what a player. Yeah. Connor, other than football, what's my favourite sport? I think this parlays into the question earlier about being bored of football. Doing this job, I almost only watch football. So I'm trying to think what else I'd actually watch. I used to really like WWE, but that's not really a sport, is it? That's more entertainment, even though there's the physical side of it. Do you know what? And I know I'll get heat from the animal cruelty people, but one of the best things I ever saw was I went to the horse racing at Newmarket, and it was absolutely brilliant. I've always said I absolutely loved that you stand at the line and it all builds up and you see everybody coming towards you, all these thoroughbred, beautiful animals charging towards you, towards the line. And as it gets closer, the noise gets bigger and bigger, and they're so spectacular, and the ground is shaking, and they come and, obviously, again, the gambling people, everyone's, maybe had a little flutter on a horse, and you're all invested. And yeah, so not that I've been more than 3 times, I think, to horse racing. Probably horse racing, I would suggest. Matty, I know Matty. What's the hardest thing about balancing YouTube music and being a dad, and how do you find the balance to it? Oh my God. So I'm sure we've got plenty of fathers here watching. If you're not a father, and I don't want to be patronising, nothing I say is going to make any sense to you now. And if you are a father, you'll literally go, yep, I get it. I know exactly what he means there. But when you talk about having a child, a son or a daughter, and I've got one daughter, and man, people who have twins and multiple kids as well, my God, I don't know how you guys do it, because my experience is only one. Although sometimes they do say you have a far bigger knowledge base on the second one, and there are times where having two together, one does some of the work of a parent, but still, you know, the overarching cost it's a lot tougher, I guess, isn't it? But having being a parent, having a child just completely resets your entire world, whether it's YouTube or doing my music work or anything. Immediately, whatever happens, your number one priority is that child. And it takes a bit of getting used to, because I've been self-employed for years, either being a musician or doing YouTube, and now I'm lucky enough to kind of do half and half and do both. And particularly like with music, it was always the show must go on. There is no sick. I remember driving to a gig, talking to like a band leader, and saying to him, oh, you know what? You know, I was young and green and naive here, and I said to him, what happens if I'm ever ill or whatever, like on the day of a gig and I can't make it? And he goes, what do you mean ill? And I went, I don't know, vomiting. And he went, well, providing you don't have to sing, just get yourself to the gig, you know, relax. And I've done this on a cruise ship. I was so seasick. I was literally leaning on the keyboard while I was playing, just trying to get through the gig. And in between, I was only on there for like 4 or 5 days. In between, I was literally just laying in the dark in the quarters that they'd given us on the cruise ship. It was bloody awful, but you still got on stage and you performed. Whereas when you have a child, it's like, well, no, whatever is happening stops. Whatever work it is, and whoever's doing it, you don't care. You just say, you know, kid comes first. And don't get me wrong, there's been times where it's been an absolute nightmare, because you'll like have a whole day planned and calls planned, and I'm going to film this, and I might have Sam Parkin booked in, and he can only do this particular day, that way you've got it all planned out. You drop your daughter off to the childminder, and 30 minutes later you get that call, and that call says Enid's got a temperature, you're going to have to pick her up. And literally that second, bang, everything else goes out the window. My missus is working at a school, so it's on me at that point. And you just stop what you're doing and you go and get her. And that's that. And look, we're very, very lucky that my missus' mother lives just over there, and we can at times pull in the favour and go, look, I've got calls booked. I can get her in 2 hours' time, but can you just take her for 2 hours? And more often than not, Nandy over there can help out. But yeah, man, they say, there's lots of cliches. They say, like, the second your child is born, your heart is not your own. And there's somebody in the universe and in the world who's more important to you than you. And it's just so, so true. That's what you sign up for. And that's my belief on parenting. And I know there are people who struggle to be a parent, and they struggle to do it, and they can't put the child first. And, you know, maybe they're a bit of a neglectful parent. And no judgment as ever here. It's difficult. It's the most difficult thing in the world, but it is simultaneously the greatest joy in the world, with being the most difficult thing in the world. And I have tried so hard to rejig my schedule. I've literally cashed my season ticket in now. We're an hour and a half away here, 3 hours round trip. I can't justify, in the formative years of my daughter's life, not trying to be here as often as I can, because the number one bit of advice I've got from other parents is enjoy it. It goes by too quickly. And by God, she's starting school in September. And I'm sure those of you who've been watching for a while will go, crikey, already? Has that come round already? And we're doing all the sign-ups for, timings. And they're coming to do like a home visit to talk to us. And we have to go down there. And then we're planning to buy school uniform and everything during the summer. So it's a glorious, glorious thing. But man, it happens so, so quickly. And yeah, in terms of balancing, there just is none. You try and cling on for dear life to all the other stuff you're doing, but you put that little child first, over and above everything. Doesn't matter if you're covering the EFL and it's the playoff final or the match of the season or whatever, that little girl comes first. So in terms of balancing, that's my strategy. There is no balance. You try your best. And my mother, wonderful, wonderful woman. She's suffering badly with dementia now, but she was wise as you like. I remember asking her, what is your advice for parenting? And she said, oh, you just do your best. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? I don't get it. That doesn't mean anything. You just do your best. That's a bit of a cop-out answer, Mum. And then I became a parent and I realised, no, that is not a cop-out answer. That is the only answer. You just do your best. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's coming. Literally, I had the most beautiful morning with Enid the other day. Everything went perfectly. It's my responsibility to do the morning run, get her out of bed, do breakfast, dress her, let her have a little play and decompress, get her into the car, get her to the childminder on time, pull up, get out of the car. She's asked to wear her Crocs. It's a sunny day. I'm like, that's fine. You can wear your Crocs, darling. We get out of the car. She's excited. She runs 3 steps, falls over, grazes her knee. I've done everything perfectly all morning. And then I'm going to turn up at the childminder's door with a child who's crying and has got a graze on her knee because literally just that 1 second, she ran 3 steps and she fell over. Surprise, surprise. Just do your best. I did my best. What can I do? What the hell can I do? So, yeah, that would be my take on parenting. And believe me, I'm no expert. There is no expert out there. You can't be. And that's the other thing as well. You're just never ready for it. That's why I said at the start, those people who aren't parents, I know you're not, Matty, because I'm a friend of yours, you'll never be ready. You'll never be prepared. You'll never be unprepared then as an example as well, Just do your best. Dave, do you think Charlie Kelman can reproduce what he did in League One last season? You're not going to like my answer, Dave. No, because he scored like 25 goals or something for Leyton Orient on loan for QPR. So no, he can't reproduce that. If he does, you've got a 15, 20 million quid striker on your books because that's what happens to people who score those goals in the Championship. Can he be a useful striker at Championship level for QPR? Yes. But that's not what you asked me, is it? Planet Ball, thoughts on Burnley's difficult first few fixtures in the Premier League? It seems churlish to talk about it, but it's a bit nightmarish, isn't it, if you get a difficult start? Sorry, let me just bring it up on my screen here. Because you get a lot of people who I think quite idiotically say, oh, well, you play each other home and away twice and it doesn't matter what order the fixtures are in. And I'm like, nonsense. What absolute garbage. It totally, totally matters when you play each other. And getting a good start is so, so vital. And who have Burnley got to start off with? Spurs away, Sunderland at home, Man United away. Well, they haven't got a difficult start then, have they? That's a promoted team and the worst 2 teams that didn't get relegated, isn't it? I think. Liverpool, Forest, Man City. So in answer to that, I don't think they've got a difficult start. And it's so hard when you look at Premier League fixtures as a promoted team because we did it with Ipswich and you're like, look, okay, January, February, 1 point there. Don't think we're going to win any of those games. It's going to be too difficult. So Yeah, I would. I would contend whether they are actually difficult fixtures, but we shall see. Gary, do you think TV companies dictate too much as to when and times games kick off? And do you think squad sizes should be regulated better? Well, in terms of squad sizes, maybe you're asking, Gary, should a few more players be allowed in squads so we get less injuries, perhaps? I don't know, but then, well, we've got chasms in the money like we have. Wouldn't the richer teams just stockpile even more players and it would be even more unfair? We found the 5-sub rule tends to, the clubs who have more money and more players, they leverage that advantage. The problem with the TV companies' argument thing is that all the clubs are very happy to take the massive TV rights money, aren't they? So, on the one hand, you can't really take their money and then complain when they ask for stuff back. So, no, I'd have to give a very capitalist answer. And I did a gig for somebody the other day, and there was a costume that I had to wear, and the guy who booked me said, "Are you happy wearing that costume?" And I turned around to him and I said, "Mate, you're paying my wage. You want me to wear that costume? I will say, yes, sir, and I will wear that costume. And you'll get no pushback from me because I am a pro, and that's the deal, and you're in charge. And if I'm very happy to take your money, I will wear the costume that you have." It wasn't a bad costume at all. So there you go. You can ask in the next Q&A what the costume indeed was and what the gig indeed was. We're getting on great. I am starting to sweat now. I'm trying my best here. The Unknown Time Lord. Let me just... down this. Hopefully that can cool me down a bit. When did you start supporting Ipswich? That's a difficult question because a lot of people ask about this. So I went to my first Ipswich game, probably in like 1989. But I didn't start supporting them properly until probably about 1996, the George Burley year, where, you can actually make up your own mind to do stuff and go to games. So that was when I really started going. And as many watchers of the channel know, my beautiful father is a Norwich fan. And in the intervening time, Norwich actually finished third in the Premier League and had a really, really good team. So not that I particularly understood football greatly at that young age, but yeah, it could have gone the other way. But obviously, living in Ipswich and then all my friends supporting Ipswich at school, you kind of gravitate away maybe from the team your father supports. I know a lot of people have it down as, no, you support the team that your dad supports, and that's it. Well, if that was the case, I would support my team's arch rivals. But no, it's I made the blue choice given that there was the locality to go to those games, and most of my friends at school support. Obviously, you get loads of people support Man United because they were amazing in that time as well. But all-time favourite Ipswich player would be Marcus Stewart. What was the first match I attended live? Was Ipswich versus Wolves. Steve Bull before the 1990 World Cup, I think, or maybe even in 1990. I can't remember. It was 0-0. You can probably look up the date of the game. Tiger Talk. As a whole fan, I'm hopeful of a less traumatic season. Do you think Action leaving Fenerbahce will be the catalyst we need for success? Interesting question. I didn't realise he had left Fenerbahce. We had the same question about Watford and the Pozzos not doing Udinese so much anymore. And you're kind of like, have they really left? Or are they just kind of moving stuff around and putting it in a different name? I think you will get a less traumatic season because it wasn't good with Volta last year. But again, it's a kind of unknown manager. I hope it works out. But it was a big drop-off from Rossignol down to Volta, and then relegation battle and a rising tide as well. The problem with Mr. Ilachali is, if he's not doing Fenerbahce, he'll have more of an eye on Hull, but will that make him even more trigger happy? And he's a bit of a micromanager, and he loves to change bosses, doesn't it? So that could even be a bad thing as well, couldn't it? So we will see. CAFC Ben, I assume that's Charlton. Unpopular EFL opinion. Okay. The playoffs are absolutely brilliant, which I don't know why is an unpopular opinion, but every year we seem to have this weird people just want to change things for the sake of changing it, and all of a sudden they decide that the playoffs aren't fair, even though everybody has known for 30 years what the lay of the land is. And if you want to get promoted automatically, then you finish in the top two. And I don't even buy the idea that a lot of people then argue, oh, third should have a much, much bigger advantage. And I'm like, well, no. They get they finished higher. They've probably got better players and a better team, normally have. Playing a team 3 places lower, 2 teams in between, third to sixth, word it however you want to. But no, I think, there you go. That's my unpopular opinion. The playoffs are absolutely beautiful and perfect the way they are. And an unpopular opinion, and I don't really think that it should be. Swest lad, if you were given 100 million to invest in a team apart from Ipswich, who would you choose apart from Ipswich? Oh my God. Sheffield Wednesday, maybe, to save them from Mr. Chansiri, or this will be an unpopular one, MK Dons, because they're literally just my nearest team here in Bedfordshire. But yeah, that one won't go down well at all. What would 100 million get you? I suppose you'd want to do it with a team that was as far down the ladder as possible, though, wouldn't you? So you could really have some fun. So maybe one of the Bedford teams down here. But haven't they got like a crypto guy, one of those as well? So we shall see. Shane, if you could swap an Ipswich player for a current Norwich player or past player, who would it be and why? Oh, Norwich past players. I mean, how far do I go back? Because Martin Peters played for Norwich, didn't he? And Joe Royle played for Norwich. But in terms of ones I watched, Darren Eadie was always brilliant, wasn't he? I've already said Emi Buendia in an answer earlier today, but he was just fabulous player. Could do with a prime Timu Pukki this season at Ipswich, given that Liam Delap has left. Chris Sutton, Craig Bellamy, I remember seeing early in his career. But let's say Darren Eadie, who used to play well against Ipswich and didn't really, I think he had some bad injury problems, but he was a hell of a player when he was young. So yeah, Darren Eadie, we will go for. Lee, if Sunderland have a decent window and prepare well in pre-season, do you think they have a chance at a decent start in the Premier League after looking at their first 6 fixtures? Let me do the same as I did for the Burnley question and bring them up. So who have you got, Sunderland? West Ham at home, okay. Burnley away. Brentford at home. Palace away. Go on, Sunderland. Then Villa and then Forest. Yes. Okay. So if you'd written down the fixtures you'd want, there's probably some of them, because West Ham struggled last year. Burnley are a fellow promoted team. They're literally the lowest ranked team from the EFL other than Sunderland. They're the next one up, aren't they? And Brentford, we're wondering whether they might struggle in terms of the managerial change. So, yeah, I'm quite optimistic there about Sunderland and Burnley's early fixtures. Should we just have a look at Leeds while we are getting there? What are the chances of a flying start for Leeds? Okay, Everton at home. Ooh, Arsenal and then Newcastle. That's not good. But then Fulham, Wolves, Bournemouth. Look, it's very, very easy to sit and do this with Premier League fixtures, isn't it? I did this with Ipswich last year and I'm getting to my 35 points for survival and they were nowhere near it in the end. So, look, I really, really hope one or other of those teams can get themselves over a point per game. I'd love to see a couple of them, even if you're at game 5 and you've got 6 points. What would that take? 1 win, 3 draws, and a defeat. It's hard. You've got to win 2, haven't you? It's difficult. You lose a lot of games when you're a promoted team in the Premier League. I've got everything crossed that all 3 newly promoted teams get themselves a flying start. Callum, what are my top 3 EFL away days? We seem to be up there for most opposition fans. Up the MF in pool. So I think he's a Blackpool fan. I've never been there, so I can't throw Blackpool in there. EFL away days. EFL. I mean, from a purely lovely logistical point of view, Coventry's a nice one for me because it's just up the road and it's always pretty noisy, pretty decent access. I quite like Coventry as an away day, but you want me to say something about noise and atmospheres. Portsmouth is kind of good fun, isn't it? Fulham, it's not an EFL away day anymore, though. Everyone loves going down to the pubs at Fulham. So Coventry, Portsmouth, who else shall I say? I always love going to Millwall. Always a unique experience. Sheffield United's always good, isn't it? Luton is very close to me, but probably won't go top on many people's EFL away days because of the view from the away end. So let's go for those 3. Who did I say? Pompey, Coventry, Sheffield United. How about that? Ratch, do you think Millwall are a special club? Look, every fan of every team thinks their club is special. And every club is special to a fan of their team. So I'm not going to say special. I do think Millwall are very unique, though. And as I just said in the previous answer, I love going down there. And there's something about Millwall that lots of other clubs don't have. So if that makes them special, then so be it. Hannah, your favourite band? Oh, God. Favourite band, crikey, of all time or now? It's varied over the years. I used to love Queen. When I was young, Freddie Mercury died and Queen were everywhere. And Bohemian Rhapsody seemed to be number one for about 100 years. And I loved the drama of it. As I mentioned in a previous answer, I loved getting into the Beatles when Oasis were out in the 90s. I've seen AC/DC a couple of times. I really like them. The one I didn't see that I really loved to sing, and I was in a tribute for a lot of gigs, Absolute Bowie. So probably David Bowie. And my daughter loves Sound and Vision because she loves to go, blue, blue, electric blue. She finds that lyric quite fun, and there's not many words in that song. So I've managed to brainwash my daughter with a bit of David Bowie. And the great thing about David Bowie is you can listen to like Hunky Dory and it's all like pomp piano and Life on Mars and Changes, and Ziggy Stardust is like glam rock, and Aladdin Sane is kind of a cross between the two. And I don't know, you can listen to Earthling and it's drum and bass. And what's the funk one? Fame, dum dum ba-dum. What's it? Young Americans. I think that's the right album. So then there's a funk album, and Pin-Ups is great with all the covers on it as well. It's like, being a David Bowie fan is like you got 10 different styles in one band. So probably, even though it's not a band, I will say Mr. Bowie, and we miss him greatly. Dan, since their relegation in 2018, Stoke have not finished in the top half of the Championship. What has gone wrong at the club to the point they've been relegation contenders in the last 2 seasons? My God, if I could put my finger on exactly what had gone wrong at Stoke. I'm trying to get through the heat here. I'm trying my best without the fan on. Maybe I can put the fan on. Let me put the fan on for a few minutes. I'm sorry if it's noisy, but I mean, the initial problem with Stoke is that they absolutely threw away the parachute payments through, who did they have there? It's Gary Rowett, first of all, and then they switched to Nathan Jones, and then seemed to change manager every year and buy a new squad, and none of it worked, and they never put one good season together. So the first thing is the parachute payments running out, and they've spent really badly because they even did a stadium sale, and we know that Bet365 have got more money than God as well, and they can't spend it. So they're one of these teams that's got marooned in that purgatory in their Championship, like Ipswich did under Marcus Evans, where you've got a wealthy enough owner, but you kind of trapped yourself. And, do they want to go the whole hog and be super aggressive, or really push, like, say, someone like Steve Gibson at Middlesbrough, always does. I'm sure they do, but they just seem to have got stuck in this quicksand that you can get in the Championship. So I guess as the parachute payments running out, a series of bad transfer windows, bad managerial hires, and getting stuck in the mud. And maybe we'll see with Birmingham, we did see with Ipswich, sometimes if you do go down to League One, not that I'd ever recommend getting relegated, it's never really a good thing, but just getting that winning momentum back and having a run at it can sometimes even help. But yeah, every season we do it. Is this going to be the year for Stoke? Can they do it? And then they never quite do. Max, as a punishment for breaching FFP PSR, I think you mean rules, which do you feel are most fair and effective? Points deductions, transfer bans, or wage caps like Barcelona have? Most effective, I mean, they're all effective, aren't they, in some way, shape or form? Clubs really hate the on-pitch sanctions, don't they? Where you get sort of 12 points deducted off, and it can really, really screw you. But then people argue that, like with the Nottingham Forest example in the Premier League, or even Everton, that they breached really, really badly, got the deduction, and they're still there, obviously, in the Premier League. And sort of fans of, who were the three teams that came down, Leicester, Leeds and Southampton, almost say, oh, well, we may as well have just breached, and, you know, not to say that would have caused survival, but so you take a case like Leicester at the moment where you think there's going to be a sanction, and fair and effective is difficult to define, isn't it? Because I think the thing that would hamper Leicester the most, and that's not the same as it being fair and effective, is if they got a business plan and a soft transfer embargo and they had to run everything by the EFL. Whereas maybe if you said to Leicester now, right, we'll give you a 4 points deduction or a 6 points deduction, but, you know, you can still do whatever you like transfer wise and, you know, just submit their accounts. And if you breach again, so be it. I think they'd take the deduction, which probably means if you've got clubs that would take the deduction over the business plans and the wage caps, like you're mentioning about Barcelona or what have you, then that's probably the most fair and effective. It's difficult because people always say to me in comments, oh, Ben, it's not fair on the fans. You got this idiot owner or whatever, or the club have misspent, and it's the fans that get punished. And I'm kind of like, well, what else can you do? What doesn't punish the fans? The fans love the club. The club means everything to the fans. Any punishment you give to the club kind of punishes the fans in some way. So I don't know how they don't punish the fans, but there you go. Right, let's move quickly. Thoughts on Sheffield Wednesday? Yet again, the fans are suffering for the mismanagement of awful ownership like my club, Coventry. I mean, we spoke earlier in the Q&A about, does the EFL need to have money put in a bond as part of their owners and directors test? I've got some sympathy for the EFL because I did a couple of videos on Sheffield Wednesday the past couple of weeks, and I always get comments saying, oh, the EFL have blood on their hand and they're to blame. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. If Mr. Chansiri passed the owners and directors test and was ploughing money in hand over fist up until 2017-18 or thereabout, or I don't know, when he kind of stopped putting money in, really, what are the EFL supposed to do? Are they supposed to have a crystal ball to say, we're not going to pass this guy because even though he's got all the money and he can meet all the criteria, I know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to put loads of money in and everyone's going to love it and they're going to get to the playoff final and lose. And then what happens then if he takes the money out? So we're not going to approve him. I think it's the put your money where your mouth is. And, you know, if you do the takeover, you present a business plan and the business plan says 6 months running cost is, God, what would it even be? Probably be something stupid like 30 million quid or something like that. You've got to stick 30 million quid in a bond. And then the EFL have got that in their pocket to say, okay, you're out. We're bringing in this administrator and they've got 6 months to find a new buyer whilst the club is run using that money that you've put in bond. and maybe then when there's the takeover afterwards, you'll get your bond back from the person that we sell to or whatever. I don't know. But if they've breached all the laws, then maybe they don't even get their blooming bond back. And that's, kind of more impetus to run a club properly, that if you want your 30 million quid back, do what the EFL sort of says. So, yeah, awful ownership like my club, Coventry. Well, yeah, there you go. Coventry have had their moments over the last sort of 10, 20 years, haven't they? Tom, on a similar theme, Gary Neville has just made you the Football Ombudsman. What are the first 3 things that you saw out? Wow. So, yeah, we'll do that. So the first thing we'll do is that owners have to put 6 months of running costs in. And if they break the regulations, they're out and they don't get their bond back. And the club is run for 6 months by an administrator. And, they find a new owner who's going to take better care of it. So we'll do that. The second thing that we're going to do is we've got to sort out the TV distribution. But no, that's actually going to be the third thing we do, because there's no possible chance of sorting that out whilst we have a Premier League and an EFL. So what I'm going to do is either I'm going to merge the two and we just have one entity running it. We can still call it the Premier League and the EFL or whatever, but I don't know. Maybe the FA could do this. But what should we call our entity? The English Football Ombbudsman or whatever has jurisdiction over Premier League and EFL, because the problem we have, or the biggest problem we have in terms of English football, I know you can talk about the Champions League then thereafter, is you've got the whole turkeys voting for Christmas thing, where the interests of the team that finishes 17th in the Premier League compared to the team that finishes first in the EFL are completely at odds. Maybe that's not a good example because that team's got promoted and they're the right side of the fence once they've got up. But yeah, we have this ridiculous situation where the Premier League just essentially wants to keep all of the money for itself. And look, I always say when I have to answer these questions, I totally understand that Arsenal and Man United and whoever, Liverpool, probably the 3 massive giants of English football for just decades and decades on end, with giant worldwide fan bases who can draw 70,000 people or whatever it is to their stadium each week. Of course, they're going to get a bigger slice of the pie. Fine. But what we can't have is, and it was an English football question, but Champions League, chasm. Premier League, chasm. Parachute, chasm. EFL, rest of the EFL, chasm. We can't have the chasms. And if you had one body overseeing all of it, or if it was just the English Football League, no, because there's the problem. The Premier League, it would have to be Premier League 2, EFL, and just some, because the brand of the Premier League, you could never change the name now, couldn't you? But I think you could fool people by saying Premier League 2, EFL. Still 4 divisions and 92 clubs or what have you, but under one, kind of overseeing organisation, because then you can sort of start to say, well, there also are teams in the EFL. So, people oversimplify it to parachute payments, and of course the chasms are ridiculous. But if you remove parachute payments, that's the only thing you do. Okay, now there's no chasm in the EFL, but you have just opened up Pandora's box there, because whereas the parachute teams, it's a 2x lift up to the EFL and then a 5x drop down, all of a sudden now for everybody it's 10x. And if you think there's a chasm now and you've got the 17, you may as well just stop promotion and relegation then, because it would just surely become impossible if you've got PSR. So yeah, so I'm on my second thing, aren't I? I'm going to have one overarching organisation that, you know, is in charge of the whole of the 92, which would then surely, by definition, get a fairer distribution. And can we get a sliding scale? For example, it's really simple. If team 1 in the pyramid gets 92 million, can we then go 91, 90, 89, 80, all the way down? Can we go all the way down? And then the team at the bottom, okay, they get 1/92 of the team at the top, but they're 4 divisions apart. It's not this ridiculous thing at the moment where you have Sunderland got £7 million TV money last season. Leeds are a year 2. Who's a year 1 parachute team? Burnley, what is it, like 55%? They've probably got 50 million or something. And then who was 17th? Was it Spurs? Got 100 million. And in the pyramid, they're 17th, 22nd. And where was Sunderland? They finished 4th, so that make them 24th. So 17th, 100 million. And Spurs as well. My God, what commercials do they get? I know that's their business and whatnot, but just in terms of the distribution of TV monies, which is the biggest problem. And again, I don't have a problem. If Spurs have built themselves a gigantic stadium and they can draw tens and tens of thousands of people and make tens of millions, good luck to them. Spend that money. That works for me. I mean, some people do argue that PSR then ring fences that, but we do have to pay some credit to the fact that Spurs have built that up over, you know, decades and decades. And is it then fair that, I don't know, whichever Elon Musk buys MK Dons, can he just then make them level with Spurs just like that? Because he's got trillions and zillions and wagillions of pounds or whatever. I don't know. So there you go. So number 1 is we'll do the owners thing there. Number 2 is we'll have an overarching organisation there that is going to ensure a fairer distribution. It feels like I've done about 5 things at once here. And that we don't have the 2. That's the biggest problem. Premier League, EFL, 2 separate entities. That is just a massive thing. And then what else should we do? Should we change PSR? Or would PSR work better if the distribution was clearer? Would PSR then work if we didn't have the chasms? I don't know. You tell me. Should we go on to VAR? I don't know. Don't want to wind people up about VAR. No. We're going to keep VAR and we're going to keep working on it. And we're going to make it better. I want to throw in some law thing. Come on, what law thing grinds my gear? Okay, we're going to stop time wasting. That's going to be the 3rd thing I do. We are going to have a real-time stopwatch. We're going to have 40-minute halves. We're going to have a timekeeper. And time wasting is going to end. Okay, so every time the ball goes out of play or the ref blows his whistle, the timekeeper stops the clock and we will play 80 minutes of in-game football. And the clock will be visible to everybody and there'll be no more time wasting. It won't be up for debate. I know fans will still cry if their team loses in the last second and they'll try and find the second from somewhere, but you're never going to stop fans crying about stuff. This will be as part of my 3rd, this is my referee and law changes. I'm sure there'll be another 20 people want to do. But yeah, shirt pulling. So shirt pulling would immediately be a yellow card and a foul wherever it's spotted. And so any shirt pull at any point, I don't know how you'd do it, but retrospectively, no, it's too difficult because you can try and find it. But I just want to stop all this rubbish at corners every time where people are just pulling the shirts and wrestling every time. So I don't know, maybe just for set plays you could do it where there's like a zone of the game. So from the set play until the ball goes dead, they'll have someone really checking on shirt pulling. And yeah, just a foul. First person who pulls a shirt, foul. Whistle it, set play stops, new free kick there and away you go. Have I fixed football? Have I done it in 3 steps? Bear in mind, I'm reading these questions off the cuff. So what am I doing? I'm doing owners, 6 months running costs. I'm doing get rid of Premier League and EFL, one entity which would ensure a fairer distribution. And then my law changes were real-time stop clock and something to do with shirt pulling. That'll light the comments up. Get your 3 ways. You're the football ombudsman. 3 things that you are going to sort out. My God, we've done 1 hour and 5 minutes. I'm getting towards the end. Oh my God. Am I getting towards the end? I think I am. Let's keep going. Noisy Tumble Dryer. All-time championship EFL 11. Ross McCormack, Jordan Rhodes, Dwight Gale, Chris Woods. Just the 1 season for James Trafford for goalkeeper. Yeah, Trafford would get in there on the basis of last season, wouldn't he? God, all-time championship EFL 11. Well, let me just name 3 names that should definitely be. Well, Tarapt for his 1 season at QPR. Kevin Phillips. Although you have to go to post-Premier League to get Phillips in. But I think he'd be my striker. Look it up and you'll agree, I think. And who else should we get in there? Let's get Ruben Neves in there just for that 1 season there with Wolves. What's my favourite position? Who misses? Well, we'll not give the smutty answer to that, and we'll give a football answer, and we'll give a life answer. My favourite position is sat in this seat talking to all of you lot. My favourite position in football is obviously like deep lying playmaker. And maybe Two-Guy of Blackburn doing it. What a player he was. Boy, who actually are you? Do you think any clubs that will get promoted this year will stay in the Premier League? I'm going to give an optimistic answer with no more detail. One of them will. I don't know who and how, but please God, one of them will. Right, we're moving quickly now. GJHN. Outside football, are there any other sports you love watching? Ice hockey, basketball. Do you know what? I did a gig the other day and the guy who was playing drums was watching a playoff game. Who was it? Indiana Pacers or something like that. And I watched a bit over his shoulder and it was really exciting. I've never watched ice hockey. I said in an earlier answer, I really enjoyed going to Newmarket and watching the horse racing. I know we'll get the animal rights. People don't like that, but I just really enjoyed it. I've got to be authentic and say that I honestly did. But yeah, basketball looks fun. I'll tell you what, I do like those American documentaries. I love The Last Dance and I really like the NFL documentaries. I've watched a couple of them, even though I know absolutely nothing about it. Anthony, I'm a Premier League person, but with the EFL Championship coming in August, which teams are you seeing going to get relegated? Oh, it's tough. Who's come up from League One? Wrexham and Birmingham. I don't think either of them are going down. So Charlton might be the most at risk out of the League One promoted teams, but they've got Nathan Jones. I think Oxford will be named, but they were great. And they've got Gary Rowett. And someone will do something crazy and have 4 managers, but we don't know quite who that's going to be. You could always rely on Cardiff doing that, but they finally went out of the trapdoor last time. CJC, who will be the first manager to get sacked in the Championship next season? My God. Maybe one of whoever the Leicester manager is, Southampton or Ipswich, one of the parachute teams. They'll be 10 for something. Or what about Ruben Sellers at Sheffield United? Maybe a manager of a team that's expected to do really well, but that struggles. Also, when you do your 1 to 24 predictions, can we get Sam Parkin to do it? Of course we can. Yeah, we'll get Sam to do his 1 to 24 as a separate episode. Good idea, that. Remind me of that nearer the time. Terry, thoughts on Cameron Burgess to Swansea? Great pickup for the Swans. I love Cameron Burgess. Great player, great guy. Obviously, I'm completely biased, but the players that took Ipswich up back-to-back. And Cameron Burgess, where was he? Accrington? My God, and he's playing in the Premier League, left-sided centre-back. What a player. Yeah, great pickup for Swansea, and I wish him all the luck in the world. And I hope he gets to the World Cup and plays for Australia. Completely biased answer, but you've got to love players who've done a double promotion, haven't you? Excuse me. Stevie, thoughts on Tom Cleverley as the new Argyle manager? Can he get us back up? Yes, he can. And I'm going to go based on what Sam Parkin has said to me, because he did Watford quite a lot last season. And I think it was actually a game against Plymouth. They didn't even win it, but they dominated it. And then I think did Plymouth score twice at the end or something crazy like that? Andre Gray scored, actually. Scored right at the end. Crazy goings on. But yeah, Sam, with his professional eye, said he really liked how Watford were set up under Cleverley. And Plymouth should really be punching their weight at League One level. So absolutely, I like the synergy. Muslik was a good hire. Rooney wasn't. So we'll give the owners a pass there. They got the last one right, even though Rooney was a disaster. Yeah, Cleverley can definitely do it. Jamie, Birmingham are going to finish in the top 2, ain't they? They could do. They could do. I think it's going to be difficult. I will say right now, probably more likely top 8, top 6 than top 2. But would I be surprised? Fezza Blue Nose. Who are my 3 favourites for the Golden Boot, with the assumption that Sargent and Sainz will be moving on? Oh man, that is a question I haven't given any thought. Sheffield United. Can Tom Cannon step up this year? Coventry. Is Haji Wright going to stay? Doesn't fancy Sims, does he? Bristol City. Can't go with Wells again, can they? Bless him, love him. Blackburn. No one's jumping out there. Ohashi. Started last season well. Here you go. Millwall. Ivanovic. That mightn't be a bad shout, mightn't it? West Brom. DK. Is he fit now? Ready to go? He'd be a good shout, wouldn't he? Middlesbrough. Conway. Ready to go. They might play him in the number 10 though, mightn't they? Azaz giving him the ammunition. Swansea. Nothing's jumping out at Swansea or Sheffield Wednesday. And Norwich, yeah, you would say Sargent in a heartbeat, but he's probably not going to be there. Watford. Bayo leading the line mainly last season. No, not really seeing that. QPR, Kelman coming back, we spoke about. I don't know. Pompey, Bishop, all about the big guy. Oxford, it's Harris who started the season, but I wonder whether they might bring someone in. Oxford. Stoke. Stoke must have good strikers on the books. Why can't I think of any? Is Manhurth a striker, or is he like a winger? Pass. Derby. Well, Eustace got a hell of a tune out of Smodics at the end of that season, although Smodics was doing it all season. Wasn't he? We'll come to the parachute teams and mention Spodix again in a minute. Preston. No one's jumping out. Hull. Hull normally have pretty high-end strikers, but have never got any kind of a tune out of them, haven't they? Stansfield, Birmingham, Wrexham, Hardy, Charlton, Godden. Who's coming? Oh, Southampton, Armstrong, Ipswich, Smodics, Leicester. Well, there's no Vardy there anymore. Mavadidi was great. What Leicester going to go with for a number 9? There you go. There's a whole load of possible candidates. Let me know in the comments who the hell is going to win the Golden Boot next season in the EFL Championship. Thoughts on Struber and potentially Adam Randell to Bristol City? Asked Ben. I did a long thing on Struber. Really, really like him. Randell is a lovely pickup. That's a really, really good one. So I think it's going to be difficult for Struber to get Bristol City 6th again, but I like him, and that's a good pickup to start with. I think there'll be a bit more movement in the markets between now and the season, or the transfer window closing there. I think it'll be a different looking team, won't it? Through time again, which mid-table team from last season is most likely to do a Sunderland? Sorry, let me bring my table up from last season, and I'm going to pick one. Most likely Swansea. Let's go for Alan Sheehan to completely knock it out of the park. They had a good run at the end of the season. Swansea, there you go. 70 points, 75 in the playoffs. How about that? Cameron Burgess doing the business. Ron, what are my thoughts on a salary cap in English football? I don't totally mind the idea, but I think we need as I gave in the how to fix English football answer, I think we need a singular entity in front of the whole 92 before we can do that. And then maybe we can get a salary cap in. I suppose it has to be relative to turnover. I think we've already got that though, haven't we? So if you're talking about a hard salary cap, I'm not entirely sure there. Greatest Ipswich game I've watched live. David, I say it every time. It is the playoff semi-final second leg. Ipswich 5, Bolton 3, Jim Magilton hat-trick, 3 penalties, 3 red cards, 8 goals. Ipswich behind about 15 times in the tie. Incredible game. You will never, in the words of Martin Tyler, see anything like this again. Is that my Bret Hart book on the shelf, Ben? It's Haynes 1-0 from school. Is that Glenn Haynes? My God, I didn't know you watched the channel. Great content. Keep it coming. I'll send you a text about it. Is that your book then, Glenn? Did you lend me that book? Do you know what? That book is signed by Bret the Hitman Hart now. I went to like a seminar with him. So if it is your book, it's got his signature in it. But yeah, I hope you're well, matey, and all is good. And yeah, we'll have to talk about that book because I'm quite protective of the signature now. But yeah, if that is Glenn, I have known that guy since primary school. Probably 35 years. My God, happy days. And we used to play five-a-side football together. Hello, Glenn, if that is indeed you. And finally, CJC, what do I think about Paul Warner, MK Dons? Do you expect him to be in the Championship in a couple of years? Mendes, Lang and Collins in. If the answer is yes, will Warren learn how to survive it? I love Paul Warren. That's a personal thing because I've met him a few times and he is just a wonderful, warm, hilarious, charismatic guy. Great, just to sound like Trump, don't it? Great guy. He's the greatest guy. He does some of the best things. I can't do the voice, but I can do the hands. He's a great guy, greatest guy. We've got some of the greatest guys there at MK Dons. Yeah, let's not do the Trump impressions. Yeah, you'd think he's going to get them up from League 2, and he's done League 1 a few times before. I know I always defend MK because I'm close by, and there are good people support MK, and a lot of people have this grudge, and I don't think they give it a lot of thought sometimes. It's just like, oh, isn't the perceived wisdom I have to dislike MK Dons? And fine if it wasn't handled in the greatest way with Wimbledon. It's a long time ago now. And Liam, one of our Patreon subscriber guys, great MK Dons fan. He wasn't even probably around when all of that was going on. So, yeah, great stadium down there at MK. And I love Paul Warren. Great guy, great manager. And yeah, you would expect some kind of trend up, whether it ends in the Championship or not. I do not know. We did it. I had to put the fan on. Can you start the fans, please? Where's that quote from? 1 hour and 18 minutes. As I say, I love these Q&As. And can I say something really personal? I've always put a bit of a wall up on YouTube and kept things away and been scared to truly be myself. And someone asked about quitting drinking, and I dared to answer the question, and I dared to put the video up, and for once the YouTube comments didn't let us down, and the people were so supportive, and so many people said so many nice things, and it was genuinely one of the most humbling things I've had on YouTube for what is an important kind of thing for me. And go and watch the video, each to their own, and I've just given my experience on having to quit alcohol. And it did make me think, Ben, don't tell the whole world everything. You don't have to do that, but you can be authentic and you cannot be scared about telling the truth. And sometimes I've been really scared, if there's stuff that's personal to me, to really tell the truth. I've always said, well, that's not for YouTube, but it was actually a really positive thing to be authentic. And thank you for asking the question and the beautiful comments last time. Thank you for the questions. We'll do it. I love doing these Q&A, so we'll keep them going for the longest time. And look, give me a secret code word in the comments if you watched all the way up to 120 minutes. I love you. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you for the next one.